was terrified by what had happened to my friend, but even more so because I knew what was going to happen, because the board had told me. It was all the worse that night when I spoke to it again, and it told me that he, whatever it was that spoke to me through the needle, that he had done it. My name is Andres. Here's what happened to me several years ago outside the San Ignacio de Loyola parish in Morelia. I was on a retreat, and that night a friend and I were assigned to watch over the church. It must have been around 3 a.m. We were sitting on the sidewalk in front of the church. Everything was quiet, and then we heard a really strange noise. I swear it sounded like chains dragging. It sounded like it was moving from one side of the street to the other. We looked around, but there was nobody there. When I saw my friend's face, I realized I wasn't exaggerating. We didn't say anything. Later, when we got up to do our rounds, I noticed what was there, very close to us. Behind a post, a woman dressed all in black standing motionless. I called my friend over and he saw her too. He just said yes and turned white as a sheet. We went back to sit down. However, I still had a nagging feeling and I got up again to look. It was still there, only now we saw it better. It wasn't touching the ground. It was kind of floating a little above the ground. We both started to pray. And then the dogs from the nearby houses, all of them started barking. Some even howled, an awful howl. When we finished praying, we looked back. There was nothing there anymore. Total silence. The only thing that stayed with us was the feeling that something very strange was nearby. My name is Daniela. This occurred 2 years and 4 months ago. I was about to turn 17. My best friend, who is no longer with us, had cancer. We only talked through video calls. The last time we spoke that night, she said goodbye to me. That night I had a horrible feeling. I finally fell asleep, and that's when things got weird. My body felt strange. I started hearing crying, first from a woman, then children, then more people. Then I felt someone touch my shoulder, and a man's voice said, "Hey, wake up, Daniela." I tried to move, but I couldn't. And then I started hearing more voices telling me to wake up. First, like whispers, then they raised their voices until they were yelling. I saw shadows. That's when I woke up with a start. I grabbed my phone. It was 3:33 in the morning. I had a feeling that someone was watching me, and I slowly turned toward a corner of the room. I saw a shadow. It was darker than all the others. I started crying. I felt a horrible pain in my chest. At 3:40, I received a message. I had barely finished reading it when the call came in. It was my best friend's boyfriend. He was crying and said she was gone. While we were talking, the shadow was still there. Finally, around 3:50, it disappeared. It only left behind a strange smell, sweet, like flowers. My best friend died at 3 a.m. Since that day, whenever someone close to me is about to pass away, that shadow appears. This happened in the 90s when I was in high school. I lived with just my dad. He worked nights. I had the house to myself. I was alone every night, bored. That's when I bought a Ouija board. I played every night. I turned off the lights, lit a candle, and sat on the living room floor. One night, the board told me something that left me cold. It said, "Your friend is pregnant." I asked which friend, and it pointed to a letter. I had a close friend, Jimena. We hadn't seen each other for over a year. I asked the board, "How do you know that?" It answered, "I'm seeing her there now." I pushed it away. Days later, I ran into her. I asked her if she was pregnant. Her face changed. She asked me who had told me that. She was angry. I left. That night, I took out that board again. The board started to move. It wrote, "The baby isn't going to be born." Then the board kept moving between 2 letters, quickly. It was as if it were laughing. It was at that moment that the front door opened by itself. I heard the creak, the bang against the wall. The house was completely empty. I asked it what it meant. The board kept writing, "Do you want to know?" When I said yes, it wrote back, "I did it. I didn't understand." I put the board away. Days and weeks passed, and one day the news spread throughout the neighborhood. My friend had been attacked. They said that night she ran out of her house screaming. She crossed a vacant lot. In the darkness, someone caught up with her. They stabbed her in the stomach. She lost the baby. They said the man who had attacked her was very tall. They never found him. When I heard what happened, the only thing I could think about was what the board had told me. I threw the board away that same day. To this day, I still don't know what to think. My name is Valentina. What I'm about to tell you happened to my boyfriend and me last year in Havana, Cuba. We found a cheap Airbnb. It was in a quieter, more secluded neighborhood. On our last night there, I was checking a window. When I raised the blind, there was a man pressed against the glass, an older man with his skin all puffy. He was trying to put his hand in. I screamed. My boyfriend saw him. He ran towards the window, but when he got there, no one was there, and the window was completely black. We went to the host. He took us to the rooftop. He pointed to our window. It was right up against the wall of another building, one that looked abandoned. There wasn't even 10 centimeters between the frame and the wall. The host told us that it was probably our imagination. We went back to the room. He held his camera up to the glass, and yes, on the other side there was just a wall. We didn't sleep. Once home, we read the other reviews. Several mentioned something similar to the man at the window. Some said the apartment smelled like burnt meat. Others said they heard knocking. Some wrote, haunted place. After that trip, my boyfriend and I have seen more things. I see a woman walking past the kitchen window at night. He's seen it too. He's had dreams that later came true. Neither of us wants to talk about what peered through that window again, because there was no way. There was no space. What we saw there couldn't possibly have been behind that window. It was impossible. The sound began precisely at midnight. Not a tick or a talk, but the slow, deliberate grind of a key turning in a rusted lock, echoing from the depths of my grandmother's old wardrobe. I inherited the house and its contents, including that massive oak armoire that smelled of cedar and dust. The first night, I dismissed it. The second, I checked every inch of the room, finding nothing. On the third night, armed with a flashlight, I stood before it as the grinding started again. This time, it was followed by a gentle tap-tap-tapping from the inside of the door, like fingernails. My rational mind fought a losing battle. Perhaps it was the house settling or a trapped animal. But the pattern was too distinct, too purposeful. Swallowing my fear, I placed my palm on the cold wood. The tapping stopped. Then, a voice, thin and dry as fallen leaves, whispered, "It's not a key turning. It's a lock opening." I stumbled back. The next afternoon, a historian reviewed the house deeds. Casually, he mentioned the previous owner, my great-aunt, who had lived here alone. "Peculiar woman," he said. "Had a fear of being trapped, carried a skeleton key everywhere. They found her in this very room, you know. The wardrobe had to be forced open. The key was inside with her." That night, the grinding returned, but now a new sound joined it, a shallow, rasping breath synchronized with the turning of the unseen key. The voice whispered again, clearer now, almost free. "I have not opened the wardrobe. I dare not. I sit each night listening to the mechanism work, wondering if I am hearing a memory trapped in wood, or if when the final tumbler falls, something that has been patiently unlocking itself will finally step out." We called it the reflection game. A foolish dare from our teenage years. Stare into a darkened mirror at 3 a.m., whisper your name 3 times, and wait for your reflection to diverge. We did it once, saw nothing but our own pale faces, and forgot about it. Decades passed. Last week, my childhood friend Leo passed away in his sleep. While helping his widow sort through his study, I found his journal open on his desk. The final entry, dated the night he died, was a single, frantic sentence. It heard me. It never stopped watching. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. That night, insomnia drove me to my own bathroom. Without turning on the light, I faced the medicine cabinet mirror. The street lamp outside cast the room in murky silhouette. I saw my own exhausted face, and then, compelled by a morbid, terrified curiosity, I whispered my name. Once. Twice. On the third whisper, my reflection did not move, but behind it, in the impossible depth of the black glass, something else shifted. It was not a distinct shape, but a concentration of deeper darkness that peeled itself from the gloom behind my reflected shoulder. It leaned forward, as if to listen more closely. I fled. The next night, it was worse. Now, when I glance at any reflective surface, a window, a screen, a spoon, I see it there, standing just behind me, a step closer than the night before. It is learning my contours, the slope of my neck, the set of my shoulders. Leo's reflection, I realize now, was alone in the dark with it for 30 years before it finally caught up. I understand his journal entry completely. The game never ends after you play it. It simply enters a new phase where the reflection is no longer yours to command, but a window for something that has been waiting patiently for its name to be called into the silence. The rule of the old lighthouse was simple. Keep the lens lit from dusk till dawn. I took the job for the solitude. The mechanism was ancient but reliable, a comforting rhythm of gears and glowing prisms. The problem was the basement. The previous keeper, a gruff old man, had said only, "Don't go down after dark. The foundation's uneven. You'll hear the sea." He was right. Once the sun set, a new sound would rise through the stone floors, not the crash of waves, but the rhythmic hollow slap of water against a hull and the faint distant creak of wooden timbers. It was the sound of a ship anchored directly beneath the lighthouse in solid rock. I resisted for a month. Then, during a storm that shook the tower, the main lamp flickered. The backup circuit was in the basement. I descended with a storm lantern. The sound was overwhelming down there. The slap of water, the groan of rope, the distinct sound of footsteps pacing a deck overhead. My light fell on the far wall. Etched into the stone, not by tool, but by what looked like frantic, repeated scratching, was a tally. Hundreds of marks grouped in sets of 5, and beside them, a single sentence. He counts the nights I failed to light the lamp. As I read it, the lantern light caught something else, a handprint low on the wall, as if someone had tried to pull themselves up. It was wet, not with sea spray, but with the thick, briny damp of deep ocean. The pacing footsteps above me stopped. Then, they began descending the stone stairs I had just used. I extinguished my lantern and hid in the pitch black, listening to the slow, heavy tread of waterlogged boots searching the basement. I held my breath until dawn, when the sounds receded. I still keep the lamp lit every night, but I know now what the light truly wards against. It is not for the ships at sea. It is for the one that is already here, anchored below, waiting for a single night of darkness so it can finally come ashore and add another mark to the wall. The phenomenon was called the Hour of Echoes by the few who knew of it. In our family's remote cabin, built into the side of a wooded valley, every night at 1:17 a.m., the house would perfectly replay the sounds from exactly 24 hours prior. You'd hear yesterday's conversation, the clink of a glass, a sneeze, all as a faint, ghostly audio imprint. It was a quirk of the architecture and the unique acoustics of the valley, or so we rationalized. We grew accustomed to the phantom murmur of our own past. My sister Alara came to visit last November. On her first night during the hour, we heard her laugh from the living room, though she was asleep beside me on the couch. "See," I said, "just an echo." She smiled, uneasy. The next night, at 1:17, we heard it again, her clear laugh, and then my voice from the echo saying, "I'm so glad you came." But I had said no such thing the previous day. We had argued quietly over dinner. The echo was wrong. The discrepancies grew. We'd hear footsteps pacing in empty rooms, doors clicking shut that had never been touched, snippets of conversations we never had. The echoes were no longer replaying the past. They were rehearsing a future. One night, the echo was of Alara sobbing. The next day, she received the bad news that prompted those sobs. The echo preceded the event. The final night of her visit, we sat in dread as 1:17 approached. The house remained silent for a full minute. Then, a new sound echoed, the violent shattering of glass, a choked gasp, and then my own voice, trembling with panic, repeating, "I didn't mean to. I didn't see you there." Alara and I stared at each other, frozen. The echo faded. The real night was utterly still. We parted the next morning with a stiff, fearful hug, our friendship strained by a horror that had not yet happened. She drove away. I have stayed, imprisoned by the hour. Each night now, the only echo is the same, The squeal of car tires on wet pavement, a single terrible impact, and then that same choked gasp. It is always followed by my own echoed voice, now flat and empty, saying, "It's better this way." The event has not yet occurred in the waking world, but the valley is rehearsing it with meticulous care. I wait each night for the echo to change, to finalize the sequence, knowing that when it does, the real event will be due tomorrow. And I am terrified to discover what role in that coming truth I am destined to play.